tragedy is always there. You're not out of prison till you out.
That was Suge Knight warning the world just how dangerous prison can be. Now it's like he saw his own fate coming. The infamous Death Row Records founder was just stabbed in a brutal prison attack, and sources say it's no coincidence. They claim it's directly connected to the secrets he's been exposing. So what exactly was Suge trying to reveal, and who wanted him silenced? Let's break it down. The attack rocked the hip-hop world. Suge Knight, once the most feared man in the industry, had become just another inmate. It happened on a June night inside R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility. According to one insider, the lights in C Block were already out when, under mysterious circumstances, another inmate gained access to Suge's cell and launched a violent assault. But to understand what really went down that night, you need to understand who Suge Knight was, not just to hip-hop but to the darker corners of American entertainment. He wasn't some street hustler who lucked into a record deal. Suge Knight was hip-hop's boogeyman. Born and raised in Compton, he started out playing football before shifting to muscle-for-hire gigs around Los Angeles. But it was the early 90s that marked his rise. After teaming up with Dr. Dre fresh off his split from Eazy-E's Ruthless Records, Suge co-founded Death Row Records. What began as a small operation quickly became the epicenter of West Coast rap. But Suge didn't build his empire by playing fair. Death Row wasn't just a label, it was a kingdom. And Suge ruled it with fear. By 1994, Death Row was generating over $100 million a year, stacked with a legendary roster: Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Nate Dogg, the Dogg Pound. It was the dream team of West Coast hip-hop. But beneath the glitz was a storm of violence. Insiders described a rain of intimidation stories of beatings, threats, and power plays. One of the most infamous? Suge allegedly dangling Vanilla Ice over a hotel balcony over unpaid royalties. He was notorious for storming into clubs with a crew of 15 deep, shutting down rooms and making examples out of anyone who crossed him. But by the mid-2000s, the empire had collapsed. Death Row went bankrupt. Suge's legal troubles caught up to him: assault, civil suits, parole violations. Then came the breaking point. In 2015, during the filming of Straight Outta Compton, Suge ran over two men in his truck, killing one. That hit and run led to a 28-year sentence at Donovan, and most believed that was the end of the story. They were wrong. Even from behind bars, Suge wasn't finished. In January 2024, he made a collect call from prison that would send shockwaves through the industry. The destination: the PBD podcast. Most inmates serving time avoid media, keep quiet, and don't stir up ghosts. But Suge knew better. In hip-hop's shadowy power game, silence is a death sentence. So he talked. And for nearly 2 explosive hours, Suge let it all out: decades of unfiltered, unapologetic, and dangerous truths. This wasn't hearsay. He named names, dropped receipts, and dared anyone to stop him. It started like a stroll down memory lane, reminiscing about the golden era of Death Row. But when the topic turned to Diddy, Suge dropped the first bombshell. And after that, there was no turning back.
I'm quite sure somebody taught him that, and that's more deep in the industry. You guys who got involved with a lot of people who was their mentors, instead of having a guy to mentor your own father, they was having these guys that mentor. And when that happens in the industry, it was done to them, they do to the next person. So,
according to Suge, Diddy didn't pick up those habits on his own, or was taught. Suge claims that powerful men in the industry took Diddy under their wing, shaping him into what he is today. Now, as a mentor himself, Diddy has become the same kind of figure who once molded him. Moments later, Suge set his sights on one of the most powerful figures in entertainment history.
Number one was Clyde Davis. And you got to understand one thing. If Death Row, when I started Death Row, you got to remember one thing. I didn't have no co-founder, nobody else. So I started that company on my own and grabbed Dr. Dre.
If you know anything about the politics of the music industry, you know one name isn't spoken casually: Clive Davis. One of the most powerful executives in American music history, Clive has launched icons, buried controversies, and, as Suge boldly implied, decided who rises and who gets sacrificed. But if you thought that was the peak of Suge's explosive honesty, think again. Less than an hour later, he doubled down, accusing the upper echelon of hip-hop of working together to silence anyone who dares break from their script. And in a chilling twist, Suge warned that even Diddy might not be safe, not because of what he's done, but because of what he knows.
He's definitely going to be the black man that holds the bag. Because you gotta realize one thing: that boy life is dangerous. His life doesn't. He's just not dangerous with the shit they said he was doing, but he's in danger. He knows too much.
That wasn't just an old gangster rambling. That was someone who carried the weight of the past, someone who knew the truth because he helped hide it.
He probably having a conversation right now with the higher-ups and everybody else to figure out how it's going to work itself out, because he know all the secrets. And if he get to run his mouth, it could be a bad look.
Suge was talking about Diddy, but what he didn't seem to realize was that running his mouth might put a target on his own back. And then it happened. It was just after 10:40 p.m. inside Cab Block Unit 5 at R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility, a medium security prison on the edge of San Diego. The yard was locked down, lights dimmed, routine end-of-night operations underway. Inmates securing contraband, guards doing checks, cells locking up in sequence. But something felt off, according to a leaked statement from an anonymous corrections officer quoted by Hip Hop Unfiltered. One cell door remained unlocked longer than protocol allowed. That door belonged to inmate D395 Marion Suge Knight. It should have closed within 30 seconds. Instead, it stayed open for 2.5 minutes. That doesn't happen by accident. In that brief window, an unidentified inmate, face-covered, gloves on, slipped inside. Witnesses in nearby cells told Vlad TV, "We heard a thud. Then another. Then it got quiet. No yelling. Just that sound people make when your ribs give out." A second inmate claimed the prison phone system, Suge's only line to the outside, was shut down for maintenance on C Block just minutes after the assault, and then the attacker vanished into the dark. Surveillance cameras, which were supposedly active, went to static between 10:38 and 10:46 p.m. One corrections source later admitted to Hip Hop DX they didn't want it public. It'd be bad for business, bad for the feds, bad for everybody. By the time the dust settled, Suge Knight, once the king of death, Rowley, bloodied in his cell. Cracked ribs. Lacerations across his face. Blood on the floor. The system moved fast. Suge was rushed to the medical unit within the hour. 3 known death row affiliates in Donovan were either transferred or thrown into solitary. The Cab Block security log for that night? Wiped. 2 outbound phone calls were made, then manually deleted from the system before sunrise. An insider told Vlad TV somebody pulled rank. That's why it never made the news. They had 2 teams, one to hit, one to clean, but word travels fast. By morning the streets were buzzing. Messages lit up yards from Pelican Bay to Lancaster. The big homie got touched. Things are about to change, everyone. Knew Suge Knight had made more enemies than friends on his climb to power. But what most didn't realize was how deep those grudges ran and who still held them. Diddy, Clive Davis, Jimmy Iovine. Even former death row enforcers now turned federal informants. Each one had a reason to fear what Suge might still know and what he might have been ready to say after that now infamous call to the PBD podcast.
It's fucking that's me, I think, to them. Shit, they ain't tripping. But if you don't stop the cycle, it's gonna keep happening.
Suge wasn't just venting. He was threatening to blow the lid off the entire industry, exposing deep-rooted ties to criminal networks, federal handlers, and massive money laundering schemes. According to a longtime West Coast insider who spoke anonymously to Hip Hop DX, Suge ain't been relevant musically in years, but info-wise, he's still sitting on unsolved murder cases, buried contracts, and dirty money moves going back to the height of the death row era. And now? He's too reckless to keep quiet. After that podcast call, it became clear Suge had crossed a line. And someone out there decided it was time to shut him up. Within hours of the attack, gang dynamics inside Donovan shifted. Long loyal OG Bloodset suddenly went silent. A high-ranking shot caller from another yard? Quietly transferred overnight, no reason given. By the end of the week, Suge Knight's name wasn't being said out loud anywhere inside Donovan. A code had been enforced. One inmate summed it up: when the bosses move in silence, you don't speak on it. And this? This was one of those moves. It'd be easy to dismiss it all as prison beef or just another power play behind bars. But once you connect the dots from Suge's explosive podcast call to the stabbing to the sudden lockdown and media blackout, the picture becomes clear. This wasn't random. The industry was paying attention. And Suge had stirred the pot one too many times, because that phone call? That wasn't the first time he'd been running his mouth. For months Suge had been dropping bombs from behind bars, exposing names and making threats that sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world. Through his podcast Collect Call with Suge Knight, launched in October 2023, the former death row boss has been peeling back the curtain on the music industry's dirtiest secrets. Betrayal, deception, and backdoor deals. Suge claimed it went all the way to the top of the food chain. Some of his most explosive accusations targeted the very artists he once helped create: Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. 2 names Suge helped transform from street-level talents into global legends. But according to him, their success came at a steep price: loyalty, truth, and the empire he built with his own hands. Still, no feud runs deeper or cuts more dangerously than his war with Snoop. According to Suge, this isn't just industry drama. It's personal. Allegiances broken, secrets spilled, and whispers of snitching that could rewrite entire chapters of hip-hop history.
Even when you speak on Snoop, people can say, well, are you picking on Snoop? Absolutely not. Snoop is picking on Snoop. Everybody say, Snoop, you had involvement in it. We're not trying to put you in prison. I don't want you to go to prison. Can't nobody put you in prison. You connected to those folks. And you Trump's little bitch. But why you just don't set the record straight?
Suge's frustration when he talks about Snoop runs deep. It's more than just calling him out for twisting their shared past. He's implying something heavier, that Snoop might have been working with law enforcement or got ties that shield him from the fallout that hit everyone else in their circle. When Suge says you connected to those folks, it cuts deep in street code. It hints that Snoop's fame and freedom might have come at the expense of loyalty to the people he came up with. You can feel the betrayal in Suge's voice, especially when he speaks on how Snoop and others have reshaped the narrative of Death Row Records, downplaying his role to spotlight their own.
What you did is the weirdest bitch I ever met in my life. Naturally, I'm in jail. Naturally, I'm in prison. So when the corporation of the name Death Row, they didn't pay the fees to keep it going, you went and got the name and asked your boss